Hi, so here's a video about rectifying the problem of a Kia Sorento from 2010, possibly for up to the next 4 years maybe, where you can't open the door from outside. You can open the door from inside, but the outside door handle doesn't work. The problem is a very small spring that breaks inside this mechanism, which is a pretty substantial piece of engineering. So what we need to do is to dismantle this unit, which isn't designed to come apart, but with a little bit of ingenuity it can be done. First thing to do is to remove this cover that goes over the cable input. There are two small clips that you have to undo with a pair of pliers, and then this cover comes off, and once this cover comes off you can lift out the cables because they're just attached in here just by the end of the arms are bent, so that will just lift out. The removal of the mechanism from the door is covered by another YouTuber's really good video, so I won't be doing that, but I'll put a link to it below. The unit is held together by screws and by rivets. What you need to do is to deal with the rivets first, because otherwise when you're taking the rivets out, if the screws aren't in, the thing will fall apart and you'll have quite a few bits. Make sure you drill the rivets from this side and not from the side with the big heads. Depending on what model of mechanism you've got, you may have 2 or 3 rivets, but the procedure is the same. So, as I say, drill out the top of these rivets here, and once you've drilled those, you should be able to punch the rivets straight out from this side. Once that is done, you can remove the screws and then the unit will come apart. You do need to remove this white plastic part first, and that is just held in with some clips. Once the screws are out, the two halves will separate with quite a few of these clips all the way around. When it comes apart, try and be careful because the mechanism inside can fall apart, so just be a little bit careful. So once you've got the rivets drilled out and you undo the screws, you can lift this section off and you'll be faced with this pretty impressive mechanism for just locking a door. So the spring goes around this post and it acts on this post here and hooks under here, and the function of the spring is just to move this up and down, and it keeps some tension on it, and when the spring breaks, this no longer moves to the right position, and that stops you being able to open the door. Now in my case, the spring is broken and here is what's left of my spring, but the broken piece is missing. I assume it's fallen out, maybe it's in the bottom of the door, but I've got a picture of a complete spring which I'll put in, which I've got from another YouTuber. So unfortunately the spring isn't available from Kia, even though it should be about 10 pence. So what I'm looking at doing is I bought this spring kit on eBay for about £4 I think, and I'm hoping that in amongst this kit will be a spring that I can adapt and make into my new spring. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So this is the spring I've selected from my kit. It's the same diameter that way, and I'll just show you a couple of good tricks on how to create the shape that we want. So here's our spring in the vise, and if you put a screwdriver through the spring and it's held in the vise, and then just pull it away, you'll find that the spring will unravel. It'll unravel pretty straight, and then once you've got enough of an end, you can see that it's long enough. We can now take a pair of pliers to that and straighten the end till we can create the shape we want. To bend the spring back to a right angle, this is a good trick. Put a drill just the right size inside the spring, put it in the vise, and then you can bend this back and it'll get you a nice right angle, which is what you're looking for. So now what we need to do is to get the right number of coils for the spring, and to get the spring to come off at a right angle in exactly the right place. Now what you want to do here is to cut this spring longer than you need it. So here you can see I've taken a bit of a guess at how long I want the excess bit to be, and so I'm just going to chop this spring here. So here's our spring that I've cut. You get hold of the loose end in the vise, and then you use the same trick again with the screwdriver, and as you can see, as I pull the screwdriver away, get it right, there we go. As I pull the screwdriver away, we can just keep pulling until we get to a position where we've got the right number of coils and we've got the right angle between where the two pieces are sticking out. So I'm going to put the phone down while I just finish shaping this, and then I'll show you again. So here we have our basic shape. We've got the right number of coils, which I think you'll be able to see there, and we've got them coming off at right angles. The fact that the spring is wound in the opposite direction, I don't think will make any difference. So all now we need to do is to cut and shape the two arms that are coming off the spring. So here's our spring. It's all shaped and I've inserted it, and if you see, it's now operating as it should, so that should resolve the issue. What we need to now do is reassemble, which is a reverse of the disassembly. Now we have assembled the unit back together and put the 3 screws back in on this example, and I've got 3 rivets on this model. So what do we do about replacing the rivets? There's a couple of options. You could try some long self-tapping screws which will tap into the other side. What I've done is I've got a 4mm tap, and I've just run the 4mm tap through the other side of the unit, and as you can see, comes through here, and I've got 3 4mm screws that I can use. The bolts that you're putting through the unit, you can't just tighten them up as much as you can, or I think it will crush the outer casing. Got a couple of options here. As you saw, I tapped the holes and then I put a lock nut on, but equally you could just put a bit of Loctite or maybe use a nylock nut whichever way, just make sure you don't crush their housing when you're putting it together. So here are the two cables reattached, and then this cover just clips back in place. And so here's the unit completely reassembled with the housing back in place, and here is a link to the spring selection that I bought on eBay, which I think is the most cost-effective way, and it also gives you lots of springs ready for when possibly your other locks fail, because this problem isn't resolved, and so if one of your locks has gone, there's a fair chance that sooner or later one of the other three will go too. Hope this helps.